Down low, squad. Shot by the police.
Is that at or by the police?
Shot at the police. Officer down, squad. The county got shot.
Telling my 4-year-old and my 5-year-old that her daddy was shot and killed.
I could tell by looking at her that it was not going to be good. You just know. And I went back and I told the chief that she wasn't going to make it.
I don't think we'll ever forget. I don't think anybody has. I don't think we ever will, like I said, but I don't think we're ever going to be as close as we were that moment.
A police officer is killed in the line of duty every 53 hours in the United States.
I can't delete his number. It's almost like if I delete his number, I'm admitting that he's not here. You know, that he's gone.
South Sac has an 1199 in progress. Officer down, shots have been fired. When we have further, I will update you.
They say time will heal. The only thing I can do now is hope I live long enough.
These guys have hearts behind the badges, and I don't think the community knows that.
I'm a person just like you're a person, but I have one of the most complicated jobs that there is.
Yes, he was a cop. He was killed in line of duty, but you know that tends to go away. People have short-term memories. I remember the person. I remember the cop.
Welcome to Law Officer Live. It is March 29th, 2017, and you are not going to want to miss this episode. We have Susan Simmons on, the founder of Under the Shield. It's one of the most premier training foundations to stress and PTSD and suicide prevention that you're going to find on the planet. I've known Susan for well over a decade. She's in town from Phoenix, Arizona, live in studio. You've got to be here for this. But before you do that, we need you to spread this show around. Hit share on Facebook, hit that YouTube link and send it around. Send them to the front page of our website, lawofficer.com, where this is airing right now. We're the only live show, the only show, period, for law enforcement, by law enforcement. And the topics that we're talking about and the things that we're saying has got to be seen and heard. And so we're going to rely on you, our great audience, to send and spread this message around. This is a very special, special episode. And it would not be possible without our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's episode is Blue Armor Supplements. It's the only supplement company made for law enforcement, by law enforcement. You can go to the website, bluearmor.com, and you're going to see the array of products that help you as a police officer be safer on the job. And one of my favorite products is a product called Rest. And everyone's familiar with melatonin and all the stuff you get at the health stores and this and that. This is GMP certified, and it has much more than melatonin in it. And the grade and the quality of supplements is wide variety. It's one reason we decided to partner with Blue Armor. It was because the supplement industry is one of the most corrupt out there, and a lot of our law enforcement friends and family were just simply getting screwed. There's no way around it. And so we partner with a company that's GMP certified, good manufacturing practices. And that means essentially is what's the bottle says it has, it actually has. And you may think that's simple, but the truth is, let me challenge you to look at the back of your supplement bottle right now. And if it didn't have the GMP label on it, Blue Armor is for you. We're getting great testimonies on this product. Check out the website, bluearmor.com. Find out for yourself. But I do not go to sleep without taking rest. It has changed my life when it comes to healthy rest and healthy sleep. So please check it out. As you know, if you watched last week's episode, we were live at ILETA, St. Louis, Missouri, the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association conference. And let me tell you, we're in our element. We're broadcasting live from that. We covered the vendor show. We covered the Emerson Hour. We covered a variety of classes. And if you go to our website, lawofficer.com, go to the exclusive section, you'll see the array of articles that we posted on that conference. And while we can't bring you exactly what that great conference is about, but we sure did our best through a digital medium to bring it to you. So we just can't thank the ILETA folks enough. What you saw there is just the beginning of what we're going to be bringing you in 2017. In fact, we're not even going to talk about it right now because you're going to get blown away when you hear about it. But let me tell you, if you like what you saw at Aida, the live coverage, the unique events going on there and that we were broadcasting them, then you're going to love what is coming. And what is coming up very soon is a program called WinX that's going to be April 25th in Chicago. We'll be broadcasting live from there. Check us out very soon for those details. In fact, next week's episode we'll talk a little bit about WinX. And you don't want to miss next week's episode because the trailer you just watched, Fallen, the documentary, its worldwide premiere is April 7th in Phoenix, Arizona. And on our website, beginning this weekend, we have a special podcast interview with the founder of that project and the cinematographer and producer of that project. But next week, right here, Law Officer Live is an exclusive interview with the founder of the Fallen Project. So check that out. We'll start talking about that next week. But before that happens, Law Officer Live this week, we have Susan Simmons. Susan Simmons, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Travis, for having me.
It's been a whirlwind so far. You flew in
has.
last night. You've obviously have friends and associates here. You've been doing training for years. So wherever you go, you find friends, don't you?
I do. I do. I'm very blessed.
So tell us a little bit, Susan. A lot of people have heard about you. They heard about Under the Shield, but just tell us what got you interested in this topic.
Okay.
Of stress management, PTSD, and suicide.
Sure. I started the company in 1992, and one of the things that I found in meeting with law enforcement officers and their families was that the key, I guess, similarity to problems was stress. Mm-hmm. And I started doing some research on it and realized that there really wasn't anything out there that really addressed the stress of law enforcement officers and their families. And so that kind of launched this desire to work with officers, educate them about the topic, talk about all the ways that it impacts them, the lifestyle, their families, those kinds of things.
So you launched Under the Shield in 1992.
I did.
Did you have any idea what you'd be seeing in the next, how many years are we into this?
25.
25
this
years
May.
of Under the Shield. Now,
Yes.
how many organizations like this can say 25 years? You were on really the cutting edge. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I came into law enforcement in 93, a year
Right.
after Under the Shield.
Yes.
And we never talked about this, right?
Right.
So you must have been really outside the box. People must have thought you were even weirder than you are.
Absolutely.
So tell us about that 1992 ideology going on with this
Sure.
topic.
Sure. It was interesting because I'd go into academies, especially there in Alabama, and the guys would walk
Wait a
in.
minute, you're from Alabama?
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't tell.
I know, that's a shocker. No, born and raised in South Carolina, but started the company in Alabama. And when I started teaching the classes, I was donating my time in the academy there, and they'd walk in and want to know when sleeping class started. They'd want me to dim the lights, and obviously that...
You at a fire academy?
Funny.
Yeah.
No, these were police officers, and that's what they'd had. Deep breathing,
Wow.
relaxation, go to your happy place. I had a chief ask me one time in a training, he goes, when are you going to start teaching my guys that stuff? And I said, well, sir, I'll be happy to, but I don't think it's going to be very effective if they're in a pursuit of a bank robber and they realize their adrenaline levels are up, and all of a sudden they go, oh, Susan taught me to do this,
Yeah.
and they wreck your car. We're going to have a real problem. We've got to start to teach people things that they can use on the job.
Well, in 1992, I mean, we didn't have the 48-hour rule. We didn't understand what psychological stress did to the body. We didn't understand the memory lapses. There's all these things that just 25 years ago we didn't have a clue. So we have evolved so rapidly and so quickly, and you were just on the early front end of that, doing it in a high dynamic way. What is your background educationally that got you even interested in this topic?
I have an undergraduate degree in criminal justice and wound up getting a master's degree in counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Actually became board certified as an expert in traumatic stress through the American Academies of Experts in Traumatic Stress. But none of that really has much value in this industry, to be honest with you. I talk about there's really nothing in a textbook anywhere at any level of education that teaches you what you need to know about the lifestyle. I was married to a federal agent in drug enforcement for 20 years. He was actually my high school sweetheart. And that's where I began to see the issues and the things that were happening. And then I was a litigation paralegal at the time. And then we had an agent killed up in Birmingham at the end of May in 1992. And his wife found out about his death on the news.
Wow.
And this was devastating. And it wasn't a fault of DEA's, it was a fault of the media at that time, especially was quick to want to be the first to get the information out, and they got it out before she could be notified.
Wow. So you have traveled down this path for 25 years. You're still going strong.
Oh, yes.
You have certainly a different philosophy than some. You talk about the fact that people have to have confidence in whoever they're talking to, whether it's police officers, because we hear from so many police officers that are scared to talk to their professionals. Absolutely. They're scared to talk to those in their department. They're scared to talk to the department psychologist because they're scared of saying something that's going to get them fired, right?
Absolutely.
And kind of tell our audience about the importance of what you do compared to what so many others are doing.
Well, what we do is called stress coaching, and all of our stress coaches, we have some in Canada, we have a lot of them around the country. And all of our stress coaches, in order to be a stress coach with us, first, you cannot be a mandatory or mandated reporter.
Now, explain a little bit about what that is.
Okay, that falls for licensed people, educators, people like that have an obligation to report if someone is suicidal or someone is homicidal. Now, we are all, the homeless man.
No, that's by law, though. By law, so a police officer, because I hear this out of the state of Illinois a lot. I don't know what's going on in Illinois, but I hear in Illinois, the cops won't say anything to any of the professionals because there's a mandatory report that it's going to get their badge, it's going to get them fired.
Yes.
And there's just this huge fear. And then we have these cops that are suffering that won't go say anything because they're worried about their career.
Oh, at NYPD, they talk about the rubber gun squad. If they wind up telling somebody that they're suicidal, especially through their department, psych services, the story is that you wind up on the rubber gun squad.
So you have an education, but you just decided not to set for the licensing board, so you don't have to mandatory report. It's a phenomenal concept that, quite frankly, I didn't know until about 10 years ago when I took your class for the first time. It was here locally, and I was blown away. I've taken classes from all the names out there that we all think about.
Yes.
And I was blown away by what I heard from you. Of course, we've stayed in touch ever since, and I've watched this evolution of Under the Shield take a strong foothold in this profession. And the more I'm in this profession, 24 years now, Susan, the more I see the need for what you do.
Absolutely. And, there's room at the table for everybody.
Of course.
That's the whole point. There's a place for the licensed people, but we've got to give officers more resources that they can freely, anonymously talk about the issues that they're having. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to see the suicides, the divorces. There's so many negative things that come from them not being able to talk about what we call the psychological garbage in the garbage can.
You talk about stress coaching, and this is something that interests me personally. You have a class coming up in Mesa, Arizona in May. It's on the bottom of our website, lawofficer.com. We've been advertising that because, quite frankly, we were actually sending one of our columnists out to that class. It's going to be a scheduling conflict, but we're going to stay in touch with those future classes. But what I thought was dynamic about that is you could take, because you're not requiring any education requirements. No. You could take somebody that's, what do you call it? Married to it, born to, explain it to our audience.
I have to have done it, married to it, raised by it, or given birth to it.
So not anybody can go, but if you qualify under that, you qualify because that's real practical. And that's what I think I value from what you do is there's plenty of folks that can talk to you about all this theoretical stuff and all the psychological stuff, and you have a mental illness, and there's nothing. But man, you come from it from and I'm not diminishing mental illness, but you are coming from it from a very practical standpoint of what our police officers can do right now to start fixing the pieces that are broken.
Absolutely, and head it off.
Right.
That's the other part to this. This is about training. This is about educating. And the reality is that we haven't done a good job of doing that for officers. We haven't prepared them for this and told them what they can do to help themselves and their families. The other thing is this is a lifestyle. We've got to start to train the other half of the lifestyle. And if we don't do that, because they're the ones who see the early warning signs. They're the ones who are seeing the irritability, substance abuse, drinking too much, whatever's going on. And they don't know where to go or what to do about it.
There seems to be this big gap of a group of people in crisis that everyone watching in this audience in law enforcement knows who they are right now.
Yes, they do.
And we don't know how to get to them. We don't know how to touch them. And we wait for the ultimate tragedy to occur.
Yes.
Right? A suicide.
Yes, and they'll all say, we saw this coming.
Or career-ending behavior.
Absolutely.
Or loss of marriage, alcoholism where it impacts your life. We wait till the tragedy to occur before we go, hey, let's do something about this. So what would you tell our audience that knows that in their agency, in their group of friends, there is a crisis people?
Yes.
How would you tell them to get to them?
Well, first of all, I'd tell them to reach out to us.
Yeah.
They can contact us. They can tell us what's going on. We can give them some tips and things that they can do that they can also encourage the person to call us.
And you have a 1-800 number.
We do.
It's not just a suicide tip line, but it's a line for everybody. It's monitored 24 hours.
Yes.
We're very proud to partner with you on that number. We've co-branded that, and you can find that on lawofficer.com and in our newsletters. But tell us a little bit about your 1-800 number and why that's so unique.
Well, it's the number is 855-889-2348, and families can call that number also.
Now, you're from Alabama, so if you phonetically, that number says "Go Razorbacks." No, it doesn't, does it?
It says "Roll Tide." What are you talking about?
Hurts.
Actually, I wish I'd thought of that. That's what I would have had it do. But families can call when they have concerns and questions. We can give them some ideas. And we do have families that do call us.
Yeah.
Parents, adult siblings, adult children, spouses, significant others. And then they can encourage their loved one to call us, because the families are a lot safer in calling us, and we can explain to them. We're never going to ask for their name, location, department. We don't ask anything.
Right.
And they can make up names, whatever. We don't keep notes. We don't keep records. We're not obligated to.
Because you're not certified.
Absolutely. Well, we're board certified. We're not licensed.
You're not licensed.
Yes.
I love this
Yes.
concept, because I think it breaks that barrier that so many that I know for a fact law enforcement are worried of. Now, first off, we're paranoid for a reason, because people are probably out to get us. But just because that's not necessarily the case in reality doesn't mean we can't be a little paranoid. But we definitely have seen tragic situations where officers have talked to professionals, and that has cost them their job.
Yes.
And we've got to break that barrier. We've got to get rid of that. And the stress coaching idea, I love this idea. And the other thing about this stress coaching, it's a 5-day class, so it's not, it's not a month, 6-week, 8-week commitment.
No.
But then your cost is like $500 for the week, which includes an internship.
Yes.
You can't find that anywhere, and that's why it intrigues me, because first, I know what the quality of your training, I know what you're about.
Thank you.
And I know the value and what these stress coaches are providing to your profession now, which are manning the 1-800 number, which are manning your Facebook page, which are helping out people. And if we can embed those stress coaches across the country, we can give more people access to it on a personal level. Because in Arizona, they can come see them in person.
Yes.
Right? And there's other states going on as well, right?
Oh, yes. Alabama, we've got stress coaches there. But, the real difference in therapy and stress coaching, we're in the game with you.
Yeah.
We're calling plays. We're not just sitting back, and it's not just talk therapy. We're actually giving you things to do. If that doesn't work, we give you other stuff to do. And we just believe that we are their resource. They can call us 24/7. When I get a call through the crisis line and I develop a rapport with that person, I then give them my cell number, so that they're not having to deal with a different stress coach possibly every time. And all the other stress coaches are doing the same thing. We want to start with you. We want to get you through what's going on, get you better, healthier, and then we're with you all the way through it. And 5 years from now, if you need us again, you got my cell number, you call me. I still have the same cell number from 25 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you talk a lot about, I know in your classes, about we always tell our officers to separate their personal life and their professional life. And you say, hey, you stop it. Let's stop telling people what the impossible is. Explain to our audience a little bit about that, because I know we have people out there watching that are struggling with that right now.
Sure. And they think, I have couples come in every week, and the officers, primarily male, are thinking that they're doing what they were taught in the academy, and they're not talking to their families about what they see and what they experience on the job. But the reality is they bring it home in their mood. Well, then the families don't know what's happened. They think they're the problem. And the next thing you know, we've got fights about this. And the officers will tell me, but Susan, I'm doing what they taught me to do in the academy. And I go, y'all got to cut this crap out.
Yeah.
Because what happens personally impacts professional. What happens professionally impacts personally. Our own personal experiences, my own 2 children were almost executed at a mall in Alabama when they were 4 and 7. And a contract was out on them for almost a year before we even knew about it.
Because your husband was in the DEA.
Yes. And they're now 27 and 30. The 27-year-old's a Marine and finishing up his time with them, going in law enforcement, of course. And the reality is this is just a family lifestyle. We've got to get over this keeping it separate. You can't do it. It's a total impossibility.
You've had a 2-decade relationship with Dave Grossman.
Yes.
And you do training with him all over the country. Kind of talked about how that relationship has kind of fostered and because you've spoken fondly of him all day.
Yes.
Not in a sexual way. Now you told me before the class started that you were married to a DEA agent.
Yes.
And that there's nothing that I could stump you with.
Absolutely.
So we'll see as the show goes on
We'll
if that's
see.
possible. I
We'll
think I
see.
almost got you there.
No, not at all. You may have gotten Dave if he's watching.
But tell us a little bit about that relationship with Dave and kind of how that's fostered.
Yeah, Dave and I actually wound up at a conference together 20 years ago with the International Association of Law Enforcement Firearms Instructors. And then we kept running into each other. And so we just said, you know what? Our stuff blends really well together. Dave explains mine as Susan has the rest of the story.
Yep.
He brings it to one point, I take it the rest of the way the next day. And he's a huge supporter of Under the Shield and what we're doing and what we're teaching. And he told me one day, he said, you know what? He said, you need to start promoting our trainings together. And that's what I did. And we try to teach together several times a year. It's pretty hard to get on his
Right.
calendar, but he always makes room to do a training with us several
great.
times a year. Yeah, I'm very honored. And
He's great. He's a great friend to us here at Lofts.com, and he's always been a pleasure to work with.
And I'm honored to call him a friend. He has really been an amazing person. I can call him about issues with clients I've had, and he always says, bring them to the next class.
Yeah, your training is very practical. You even dive down and talk about supplementation and,
Yes.
and proper supplementation. Kind of talk to our audience how important that is. Of course, you're familiar with our Blue Armor products that are the sponsor for this show. But talk to us about the importance of supplementation.
Well, at Under the Shield, the way we look at law enforcement officers is the brain controls the body, but how the body feels, sleep deprived, vitamin depleted, injured, stressed, whatever's going on, impacts what the brain thinks. So the very first thing we do with everyone is we start with the physiological. We get that back in balance. We get them sleeping better, so the rest is going to be outstanding for officers. We make sure that their vitamin B levels are extremely high because of all the symptoms. The symptoms of vitamin B deficiency: mild depression, loss of energy, irritability, sleep pattern changes, eating pattern changes, and inability to concentrate. Go to the medical community, they're going to want to load you up on antidepressants and sleep products, and those things are not going to work because it's a vitamin B deficiency. It's pretty easy.
Right.
And so it's really important to make sure we're getting balanced in this stuff. Depression is an issue. A lot of times officers don't realize 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. It's coming from the vitamins and minerals in the food. If you're getting good food, when it gets to the gut, the body then absorbs them. That's when serotonin can be produced. So that's what affects our depression levels. So we've got to make sure that they have a level of understanding of the importance. This isn't just people talking to sell products.
Yeah, you mentioned adrenal fatigue quite a bit throughout just talking to people today. You've been meeting with law enforcement leaders today.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I'm not certain on what that is, and I doubt our audience is either. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, there are three characteristics, as I was telling you earlier, in law enforcement. The majority have ADD, which means you're of higher IQ. You also are adrenaline junkies.
That must be the audience here at Lofts.com.
That's it, absolutely.
IQ, yeah.
You're adrenaline junkies and you're caregivers. Well, the adrenaline junkie, that's what drives you. So the things that you're doing, the adrenal glands are constantly being pushed. And you can actually push them to the point of fatigue. And there are things that you can do to get your cortisol levels down, especially at the beginning of your day, that allows the adrenals to begin to heal. And adrenal fatigue, there's actually a test at, I believe it's called adrenalquiz.com, where they can go and answer those questions, and it's private.
Can I just tell you that I think I love you? I mean, I've been looking in your eyes while you talk. Did that work? Did that kind of shock you?
Not at all.
Okay,
everybody loves me. Everybody loves me, Travis. What are you talking about? And so they can go and do this test and see if they have it, and then we recommend they can call us. We talk about this in our training, but they can call us. We can make some recommendations of things that they can do to help heal the adrenals.
Man, that's good stuff.
Well, it's got to be done. This stuff is this is hard.
And how much are we missing when it comes to this area? I mean, especially we talk about, we get a lot of officers, and we've mentioned this on the show before, a lot of the officers are on testosterone replacement, especially older officers. But that can be dangerous if it's not done correctly.
It can be, absolutely. We're really blessed in Arizona that we have a group that really specializes in this. And really what you're looking for is someone that doesn't just throw testosterone at low testosterone. There are other things. Adrenal fatigue can cause low testosterone. You want to look to see if there are other things rather than just, it'd be like throwing Tylenol and aspirin at a fever rather than looking for an infection.
Right.
You've got to figure out what the cause of it is first.
One of the best stories I heard you tell is there was a major department. You teach a class called Warrior Survival at Home and on the Streets.
Yes.
And there was a major department that you talked about that made you change the title and take warrior off. Now, how ridiculous have we gotten in this country when our leaders are saying, take the word off because the word warrior offends me?
Absolutely.
Now, you must have just thought, what in the world is going on here?
Well, and we're hearing this all over the country. I'm hoping we're going to begin to see that change at some point because, as Dave Grossman talks about, words do have power.
Yeah.
And as I explained to a chief, I said, you know, with those three characteristics of of being an adrenaline junkie, ADD, and a caregiver by nature is a guardian or a peacekeeper. That's why, you know, ask officers 100 years ago or today, why are you going into law enforcement? I want to help people. That is a guardian or a peacekeeper. I don't have to develop that.
It comes with,
Absolutely.
that's why they're going into the job.
Yes, and warriors can be peacekeepers and guardians, but peacekeepers and guardians are not always warriors.
And you have to train for the warriorship.
Absolutely.
You can't, people aren't generally born to run into dark alleys with gunfire.
No.
We have to train their bodies to be able to do that. But we see so many in our leadership ranks that are shying away from that training. That makes no sense, because I guarantee you, departments that won't shy away from that training is Orlando and Dallas and Baton Rouge, and we could go on and on.
Absolutely.
So we're just not being honest about it.
Well, and the thing about it is, you know, we talk about fight or flight. Technically, it's freeze, flee, or fight. And how you respond is based on your training.
Right.
That's the part of training warriors that we have to do. There is a time that's appropriate, not many, to freeze. There's an appropriate time to flee, and there's an appropriate time to fight. But you have to train that, because by nature, are you a deer hunter?
I'm not.
Okay, but
No,
deer hunters out there
I
tell
actually
you,
prefer, if I'm going to go hunting deer, I think it should be a fair fight, and they should have rifles as well.
I hear that all the time. But the reality
Nothing
is,
against deer hunters. I grew up with a bunch of deer hunters.
but they'll tell you, if a deer suspects that someone's out there, hears something, what's the first thing they do?
It's going to
They
run,
freeze.
right?
No, it freezes.
Freeze, yeah.
Freezes first.
Yeah.
And that's how most of us are built. And that's why we have to train all of these things. And we got to train you to be a warrior.
Well, on this topic, yeah, you could take the word off, but your class didn't even change, and they didn't even care.
No, and it wasn't going to. No, and that's what I told them. We can call it dog catching, but I'm going to teach warriors.
You know,
it is
I think that obviously we talk about leadership a lot here.
Yes.
And where do you see law enforcement leadership? Where do you think it's really suffering right now?
Well, one of the things is we're not giving them the tools to even be able to recognize what's going on in their own people.
Right.
We have a training class called Why Good Cops Make Bad Decisions.
And that's designed for first line supervisors.
It is.
Yeah.
And in that, what we're doing is we're teaching them how to identify early episodic stress symptoms.
Right.
So they can get into it early rather than waiting until it becomes chronic, where they then have to discipline and or terminate. Let's head this off. This is costing departments. I mean, everybody is short-staffed as it is.
Right.
You're all competing for a very small pool of people who want to do this job. And then we've got people who are trained, and we're letting them just kind of spin out of control, and then we're getting rid of them.
Right.
That's too costly. We can't afford that anymore.
You talk a lot about debriefing. I heard you talk about it a lot today on how we need to be debriefing our officers after critical incidents.
Yes.
And you have a unique take to this. Kind of explain to our audience how we ought to be debriefing our officers after shootings or critical incidents.
We call it critical incident peer support. And in Alabama, I run probably the busiest team in the whole state. And we do not ever allow anyone to debrief anyone even in the same county. Much less in the same agency. A lot of the teams around the country, they have their own in-house CISM teams, and they are debriefing their own. Well, there's several problems with that, and I hear it from officers all the time. I'm not going to talk to somebody in my own agency. They could be my lieutenant next week.
Right.
There's also some issues with regards of people in peer support being called in by internal affairs, and when you work for that agency, they have control over you, and confidentiality may or may not happen.
Right.
But if, say, in Alabama, if Birmingham people debrief people in Mobile or Montgomery, then we've eliminated that issue. And we don't keep notes or records, but we've got to begin to do a better job of this. And around the country, it's coming around. Mm-hmm. It is, but that's all reactionary. I want people healthier going into the critical incident, so they're healthier coming out the back end. Makes the job easier for all of us.
Obviously, you're big on doing so much of this training in the academy setting.
Yes.
But how much more important is it once they're out of the academy and sort of in this battle of what's going on to continue this type of training?
Well, it's kind of two different trainings, really, because those in the academy don't even know enough to know what I'm talking
Poor
about.
Little babies. There's little babies rocking them to sleep.
Sure, yeah. And so what we do is we give them, in a couple of hours, some things that, again, make them healthier, so that they're healthier coming out of the academy, jumping into this. But then once they get into this line of work, within a year, they need to hear the rest of the story. Because, you know, burnout, when you first started, probably retired on active duty or whatever you call it, probably happened at about 10 years.
I was going to say 7 or 10.
Now we're seeing it around the country at 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And that's because, again, we haven't prepped them and
It's
up.
become so much of the external stress, and then the lack of staffing on many departments are just having
Absolutely.
to work. I call it like dog years. Like 1 year,
Yes.
1 year now
That's
is
a
like
good
6 or 7
analogy.
years.
That's a good
for these
analogy.
officers.
Absolutely.
So you're right. They get 3 or 4 years in the job, they're done.
Well, and now we've got the issue of officers literally being hunted, and they're sitting in their patrol cars. You know, we just had 2 down in Miami sitting in an undercover car, and 6 people basically ambushed them.
Yeah.
Well, families were having a hard enough time,
Yeah.
and now they have this factor they have to deal with, and families haven't been trained. They don't even know where they can go. We have at Under the Shield, we have a closed Facebook page or group. We have a page and a group called Partners in Crime, and we vet everyone coming in, and it has to be law enforcement, spouses, adult siblings, adult children, and parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a support group, and it's an amazing group. They do a lot of great things on there.
I love a couple of things you said. You said there's room at the table for everybody.
Absolutely.
And one thing that really bothers me, and I know it bothers you, is there's this kind of kingdoms, and people don't like playing in the same playground. Just this
Very
week,
territorial.
yeah, just this week we put out really a phenomenal 9-minute video taken at the Emerson Hour. You can see that on our Emerson Hour article at officer.com under the exclusive section. And it's of a speaker there talking about suicides, and it was pretty powerful. We got a lot of good feedback on it. But she actually said that there were people, other large organizations, other people in the media industry and law enforcement that would not show the video because it had our logo on it. And then you actually told me a story that there was somebody that's in the media industry that when they found out you were coming on our show and working with us, they left you.
Yes,
Now,
absolutely. And won't respond to anything.
How asinine is that?
You know, and we're not going to get anywhere till we all begin to work together. And like I said, there's plenty of room. We have to use licensed people for fitness for duties and pre-employment and the medical retirements. Absolutely. And I have a group that's who I refer to.
Yep.
And but for some reason they seem to think because I didn't sit for a license exam that somehow there's no value in what we do.
Yeah, that's what I love you so much for, is because we see ourselves here at lawofficer.com as service-oriented, and we're on a mission to help the profession.
Yes.
And sometimes that just doesn't entail making money.
No.
Sometimes it entails partnering with competitors.
Yes.
Sometimes it entails, talking to more than one person that's involved in suicide prevention, which we do. And you're the same way. You're about the mission.
Yes.
And it is very upsetting to see there are other groups, and we're not going to name names,
right.
that you would be familiar with.
Yes.
Major media companies in law enforcement that literally will run away if any of this talk is going on.
Sure. And there are people in mental health. Mental health field is very territorial. A lot of the CISM, peer support teams, are very territorial. And again, this isn't about money. CISM teams don't make money. That's a freebie. That's something that is donated to agencies. But it's almost like they're in it for them rather than what the really mission is, and that's to help our law enforcement officers. You know, I tell businesses all the time, without police in our cities, deputies in our counties, and troopers on our highways, and all the umbrella of law enforcement, which goes communications all the way through probation and parole, because without each other, nobody's got a job. But without all those groups, there's not a business in this country that can open their doors.
Right.
Fire department won't even come out. Look at Ferguson. They had to stage way away until things were under control. Yeah. And we have to begin to understand the mission is for all of us. I want my grandchildren one day to be able to do things that I did, as a kid. And we can't do that without you guys.
You started in 1992.
Yes.
It was abysmal. This topic was totally, you couldn't even speak the word suicide.
No.
And now, of course, we're here in 2017. Where do you see this going? Do you see us continue to improve, or do you see some hurdles we still have to climb?
Oh, I see a lot of hurdles because the mindset is even changing. Mm-hmm. And it's because, again, we're not teaching the stress management at a level that needs to be taught. And so I'm even seeing it shift from when I first started, the suicides were get mad, get drunk, and just literally impulsively do something, not thinking it out. Now I've got guys telling me, and they are sober as a judge, and they're sitting in my office and they're telling me, yeah, you'll never know it because I've already figured out all I got to do is stop a car in heavy traffic, stumble and fall into traffic, and one of two things will happen. I'll either get injured, still be money, not a lot, but still money, but if I die, there's a buttload of money for my family. That is scary to me.
So you're saying what could happen is the actual suicides may go down, but line of duty deaths may go up because a lot of them are masked suicides. And,
Absolutely.
And what we talked about 20 years ago was, oh, it would always be when you're cleaning your gun. That was always sort of the metaphor we would talk about. Oh, well, you know, if you ever get a dead cop where they were cleaning their gun,
right,
it may be a suicide. But you're saying it could be even more kind of, you know, under the table than that.
Absolutely. Single car accidents up in the Northeast.
Which happen to be an all-time high right now.
Yes, and they hit the pilings of the interstate and people go, oh, he must have hit black ice. Guy grew up there. You know, now put me up there, I'm probably going to have all kind of wrecks or cause all kind of wrecks. But that's not what these people are about.
Dave Grossman actually talks about the same thing.
Yes, he does. And
so what do we as a profession, we as administrators, what do we need to do to make sure this doesn't continue on?
Well, we've got to begin to train officers and their families, because the families are the ones who see the early signs.
Right.
And they got to have a safe place they can call. And that, I mean, that's the beginning. Start in the academies, continue to do this, because every day I'm getting new information. I do research on all the physiological stuff. We're constantly updating our material.
Yep.
And let us come in and teach and speak to these families. I was a wife of a law enforcement officer for 20 years. I remember an officer one time in a training trying to teach me about my lifestyle, and I had to get up and walk out, because I thought, you've never been the one sitting on the stairs at 2 in the morning waiting to see headlights come down the street, knowing that he was okay. You've got to have somebody who's been there, done that. And that's just, that's step one. This is all about training, every bit of it. We can head this stuff off if people know they have a resource that's safe, that they can call and talk to somebody and not be judged, not fear of reprisal in their job. Families have to be able to do the same thing, but they got to know what to look for and who to call.
Undertheshield.com. Give your toll-free suicide helpline, just general helpline out again, and tell our audience how they can contact you.
Okay, you can call us at 855-889-2348. Our website is undertheshield.com. You can hit us on Facebook, which is actually Under the Shield Foundation. Private message the page. The stress coaches and peers actually man that page.
And it's anonymous, it's confidential.
Absolutely. You know, I've got to making up false Facebook pages just to message us. That's fine. A lot of times you're going to get me. And
now that's the interesting thing. They call the number, it comes to you oftentimes.
It does. I'm kind of like that. But
how many calls a month on average are you getting?
You know, I don't really know, because if I'm on a call, it rolls to another stress coach, and I don't ever ask them how many calls they're getting, but I'd venture to say we stay pretty busy.
We're obviously going to market that and put that number out there to as many places as we can. You're going to see more of our articles with Under the Shield.
Yes.
You're going to see your upcoming training and stress coaching on our website where you can sign up.
Great.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I think we could probably talk about a small discount for our law officer audience.
Sure, absolutely.
We want to get this out to as many people as possible.
You bet.
Susan Simmons, I'm telling you, our audience needs to understand this is the most premier training you can take. I love the concepts. I love the practicality of it. We can't thank you enough for being here today.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. We're honored to be working with you guys.
Susan Simmons, Under the Shield. You see why we love her so much. Thanks for being with us. You've been watching Law Officer Live. Thank you.
Was that an hour?